Theories are formulated to explain, predict, and understand phenomena, and in many cases to challenge and extend existing knowledge within the limits of the critical bounding assumptions. The theoretical framework is the structure that can hold or support a theory of a research project. It introduces and describes the theory which explains why the research problem under study actually exists. Its main goals are to define key concepts, evaluate and combine relevant theories and models, and explain the assumptions and expectations that guides your project. By presenting this information, you frame your research and justify your approach by showing that your work is grounded in established ideas. This part of your thesis lays the foundation that will support your analysis, allowing you to convincingly interpret your result and explain their broader relevance. In this video, we will talk about the importance of the theoretical framework, the steps in creating one for your thesis, how to or the ways in which you should be structuring your framework, and some useful tips in writing this section of your thesis. So before you start your research, you have to explore what theories and models other researchers have already developed. The goal of a theoretical framework is to present and explain this information. There may be many different theories about your topic. So the theoretical framework also involves evaluating, comparing, and selecting the most relevant ones. Before we talk about the steps in constructing your theoretical framework, let's look at some information about this section of your research. Now, a theoretical framework consists of concepts together with their definition and existing theory or theories that are used for your particular study. Theoretical framework must demonstrate an understanding of theories and concepts that are relevant to the topic of your research paper and that will relate it to broader fields of knowledge in your class or the course that you are taking. Also, the theoretical framework is not something that is found readily available in literature. It's not something that you can copy from another researcher. You must review course readings and pertinent research literature for theories and analytic models that are relevant to the research problem you are investigating. The selection of a theory should depend on its appropriateness, ease of application, and explanatory power. Also, the theoretical framework strengthens the study. It does this in several ways. First, it provides explicit statements of theoretical assumptions which permits readers to evaluate them critically. Also, the theoretical framework connects the readers to existing knowledge. Guided by a relevant theory, you are given a basis for your hypothesis and choice of research methods. Moreover, the theoretical framework articulates theoretical assumptions of a research study, which forces you to address questions of why and how. It permits you to move from simply describing a phenomena or a phenomenon observed to generalizing about this to various aspects of the phenomenon. Also, having a theory helps you to identify the limits of those generalizations. A theoretical framework specifies which key variables influence a phenomenon of interest. It alerts you to examine how those key variables might differ and under what circumstances. By virtue of its application nature, good theory in the social sciences is of value precisely because it fulfills one primary purpose: to explain the meaning, nature, and challenges of a phenomenon. Often experienced but unexplained in the world in which we live in. So that we may use that knowledge and understanding to act in more informed and effective ways. So, now the same research topic can have or can be approached by very differently within different theoretical frameworks. Let's say that your topic revolves around depression. As you see here, the same topic can be viewed differently through the lens of different theories. For example, behaviorism emphasizes the importance of environment in shaping behavior. The focus is on observable behaviors and the conditions through which individuals learn behaviors, namely classical conditioning and operant conditioning and social learning theory too. Therefore, depression is the result of a person's interaction with their environment in this theoretical lens. On the contrary, the cognitive approach focuses on people's beliefs rather than their behaviors. Depression results from systematic negative bias in thinking processes. Emotional, behavioral, and possibly physical symptoms result from cognitive abnormality. This means that depressed patients think differently to clinically normal individuals. The cognitive approach also assumes changes in thinking that comes before the onset of depression. Lastly, Martin Seligman in 1974 proposed a cognitive explanation of depression called learned helplessness. According to this model, depression occurs when a person learns that their attempts to escape negative situations makes no difference. So, the critical evaluation of these theories is beyond the scope of this lesson. The point that I am driving at is that your task is to explain the key aspects of the theory and convince your readers that it provides a solid basis for answering your research question. You should also evaluate other relevant theories and discuss why you have chosen this approach. Now, the length and complexity of your theoretical framework depends on your field and topic. Some studies have an obvious basis in a well-established theory, while others require more detailed explanation and justification. Also, you might already know that you want to apply an established theory or set of theories to a specific context. There are always many possible explanations or approaches to a topic. Strong research often involves drawing on various different theories and combining ideas. If you don't yet have a theoretical approach, you might want to follow these 3 steps to build a theoretical framework. First, is to identify your key concepts. So the first thing that you have to do is to pick out the key terms from your problem statement and research questions. Concepts often have multiple definitions, so the theoretical framework involves clearly defining what you mean by each term. This means that conceptual definitions of your variables should be based on the theory or theories you are using. Second is to evaluate and explain relevant theories. By conducting a thorough literature review, you can determine how other researchers have defined and drawn connections between these key concepts. As you write the theoretical framework, aim to compare and critically evaluate the approaches that different authors have proposed. After discussing different models and theories, you establish the definitions that best fit your research and justify why this is the case. In more complex research projects, you might need to combine theories from different fields to build your own unique framework. You have to make sure to mention the most important theories related to your key concepts. If there is a well-established theory or model that you don't want to apply to your own research, you have to explain why it isn't suitable for your purposes. So, step 3 is to show how your research fits in. Apart from discussing other people's theories, the theoretical framework should show how your own project will make use of these ideas. This is something that I have seen a lot of student researchers missed out on. It's not enough to just cite a theory. You need to contextualize it to your research. You might you might aim to do one or more of the following in order to accomplish this. First, test whether a theory holds in a specific context. Also, you can use a theory as a basis for interpreting your results or critique or challenge an existing theory. You can also combine different theories in a new or unique way. So, there are no fixed rules to structuring your theoretical framework. The important thing is to create a clear logical structure. One option is to draw on your research question, structuring each section around a question or key concept. As in all other parts of your research, make sure to properly cite your sources. And just in case you are still stuck, consider that a good theoretical framework has this descriptions. First, it clearly describes the framework, concept, models, or specific theories that underpin your study. This includes noting who the key theorists are in the field who have conducted research on the problem you are investigating, and, when necessary, the historical context that support the formulation of that theory. This latter element is particularly important if the theory is relatively unknown or is borrowed from another discipline. Second, it should be positioned within a broader context of related frameworks, concepts, models, or theories. There will likely be several concepts, theories, or models that can be used to help develop a framework for understanding the research problem. Therefore, note why the framework you've chosen is the appropriate one. Also, a good theoretical framework explicitly expresses theoretical assumptions. Later, your discussion of methodology should be linked back to this theoretical framework. Lastly, a theoretical framework don't just take what the theory says as given. Reality is never accurately represented in such simplistic ways. If you imply that it can be, you are fundamentally distorting a reader's ability to understand the findings that emerge. Given this, always note the limitations of the theoretical framework you have chosen. That is, what part of the research problem require further investigation because the theory does not explain certain phenomena. So, lastly, let's look at some useful tips in writing your theoretical framework. First is to not limit yourself to theories of personality. Many student researchers restrict themselves to theories of personality. While they can be helpful in explaining personality, they are inadequate explanations of other psychological constructs like say cognition or attention span or memory or other variables outside the study of personality. In relation to this, you may want to borrow theoretical constructs elsewhere. A growing and increasingly important trend in the social sciences, as well as in psychology, is to think about and attempt to understand specific research problems from an interdisciplinary perspective. One way to do this is to not rely exclusively on the theories you have read about in a particular class, but to think about how an issue might be informed by theories developed in other disciplines. Building theoretical frameworks based on the postulates and hypotheses developed in other disciplinary contexts can be both enlightening and an effective way to be fully engaged in the research topic. Also, you have to do not commit an under-theorizing. Never leave the theory hanging out there in the introduction, never to be mentioned again. Under-theorizing weakens your paper. The theoretical framework you introduce should guide your study throughout the paper. So be sure to always connect theory to the analysis and explain in the discussion part of your paper how the theoretical framework you chose fit the research problem, or if appropriate was inadequate in explaining the phenomena or the phenomenon you were investigating. So, in conclusion, a theoretical framework is used to limit the scope of the relevant data by focusing on specific variables and defining the specific viewpoints. or framework that the researcher will take in analyzing and interpreting the data to be gathered, understanding concepts and variables according to the given definitions, and building knowledge by validating or challenging theoretical assumptions. Again, this has been Dex Kamitan, and thank you for watching.